Welcome to another edition of the Press Box Podcast, episode 25, if you're counting at home. Hi, I'm your co-host, Ralph Miranda. My other co-host, Joseph Miranda, will be joining us shortly, and we've taken a little bit of a break. We've been off for about 2 months, and due to travel schedules and other things that have gotten in the way, but we're back now, and hopefully we're going to be a little more consistent. We've got a couple guests that we want to get on here in the next few weeks. And we've got lots to talk about. We're hitting the sweet spot of sports with the NFL kicking off here a couple days ago, and the baseball pennant race is heating up. Today we're going to talk week 1 of the National Football League season, 16 games. As we're recording this podcast, 14 of the games have been completed. We've got 2 tonight, the standard double Monday night kickoff on the opening week of the NFL. So we've got lots to talk about, some surprises, some things that were not surprises that went according to plan. But it should be an interesting podcast. We're looking forward to it. So stay with us for the Press Box Podcast.
For this episode of the Press Box Podcast, as Ralph said earlier, we are back, and we want to talk pretty much exclusively Week 1 NFL today. First Monday after the first Sunday slate of games, which is always fun. So a lot of people say either the wild card round or the divisional playoff round is the best weekend of football, but I think I'm all for a full Sunday of games, and when you get that first Sunday coming back, it's always fun. So I think yesterday was kind of... I don't say as good as it gets, but it's always a fun day. So, like you said, full slate of games. What do you want to start with today?
Well, let's talk a little bit about what you just mentioned about the excitement of the first Sunday of the NFL. I mean, college football obviously starts a week earlier, and you have those key matchups, those early games, kickoff classics, if you will. Yeah. But there's nothing like the first weekend of NFL. It starts on a Thursday night. We had the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles opening up at home against the Atlanta Falcons. And I thought when they announced that game back in April that a better game would have been the Eagles and the Vikings, since they played in the NFC Championship game, and they're scheduled to play this year. Right. But then I realized that the Falcons and the Eagles are the last 2 NFC participants in the Super Bowl. And the Eagles did beat the Falcons in the first round of the playoffs, so it was a good matchup. And wasn't a very high-scoring game. Most of it came in the second half, but the Eagles did win. But you've got that game, and then you've got kickoff Sunday in the NFL. It's always exciting week 1. So I guess let's start and talk a little bit about maybe some of the things that were surprises. And I think one of the ones that was a surprise to me that kind of came out of left field was the Saints getting beaten by the Buccaneers.
I thought for sure that the Saints had that one going into the game. They're playing in the Dome.
Right.
Buccaneers, which I don't think we can get into this later, but Jameis Winston isn't all that great in my opinion, but he is their starting quarterback. He has been for the past few years, and when you take him out of the lineup and have Fitzpatrick come in, who can be hit or miss, you just figure that the Saints are going to kind of roll in that one. And they scored 40 points. They did what we thought they did, but the Buccaneers scored 48. So, I don't know if that's... Look, Fitzpatrick played well, obviously, but that's got to be somewhat of an indictment on the Saints defense also. That was definitely surprising. I mean... I think that the big takeaway from that game is Winston's lost his job.
Yes. Well, there's so many things to talk about with this game. I mean, first of all, up until last season, the Saints' defense was their Achilles heel.
Right.
Last year, they drafted 2 guys in the secondary. Their defense played really, really well last year. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it looked like it had become that they had fixed the problem, and the Saints were one crazy play away from being in the NFC Championship game. And then you come out this year at home with Drew Brees at quarterback, and you give up 48 points. In fact, I think they had given up 41 before they even knew what hit them. I mean, it was like over early. So that's one thing. And then you mentioned the Jameis Winston losing his job. what we're getting into here is about round 5 of the Ryan Fitzpatrick drug. Okay, what I mean by that is Ryan Fitzpatrick was the starter for Buffalo at one time. He was the starter for the Texans at one time. He was the starter for the Jets at one time. And he's always played pretty well. And you start thinking, hey, maybe this guy needs to be our quarterback. And then he gets that pretty nice contract, and then he hits the wall. So you wonder what the Bucs are going to do here. I mean, let's say Ryan Fitzpatrick has 2 more good games before Jameis Winston is eligible to come back.
You got to start him.
What do you do?
Well, you got to start him. I mean, he was 21 for 28 with 417 yards.
I understand that.
That's. I don't think he's going to repeat that all year. But look, I'd see how the next 2 games play out, and if they're 2-1, 3-0, and he's got the momentum, you have to start him.
I agree.
But I think we were talking about this yesterday. What I would do with Fitzpatrick is, under that scenario, he started the rest of the season. I'd part ways with Winston, and then even if you have to start Fitzpatrick next season, I don't know the stat of his contract, but bring him back on a 1-year deal, and then now you got to get a quarterback. So draft a quarterback next year.
Right.
Don't make him your long-term replacement. Look for a replacement and let him play in the meantime, because he's shown he can get it done. He just showed it yesterday. It just depends on when that's going to run out for him.
Right. Well, I think the Buccaneers made a mistake with Jameis Winston. I mean, there's no question about that. But and they're starting to see that. And I think they'll have a new head coach next year, because obviously this guy doesn't seem to be able to. I mean, 2 years ago they were 9-7 and missed the playoffs by a razor-thin margin. And then last year they went 5-11, and here they are with a different quarterback, not their number 1 pick from a few years ago. So
one of the main reasons he got the job was because he was Winston's offensive coordinator his first year, so they wanted to kind of keep that.
That's true.
Keep that relationship going. So, and if Winston's out, then you got to think Cutter.
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. But that was a surprise nonetheless. I mean, I did not expect the Buccaneers to win that game in the Superdome against the Saints. So that was a surprise. Any other things that surprised you from yesterday?
The Ravens 47-3 beat down of the Bills. Look, I didn't expect much from the Bills this season, especially when they announced they're going to start Nathan Peterman, a quarterback who from the infamous 5 interceptions in the first half against LA last year. And the Ravens are usually a team that you don't see them blow out a lot of teams. I mean, they're kind of one of the teams you can always count on turning on their game in the fourth quarter and then being kind of in a pretty close battle with somebody. But 47-3, I mean, that was just. I didn't see that coming at all. I mean, I didn't think the Bills made the playoffs this year. I didn't think they're going to be that bad.
No, I didn't either. I think you're seeing, Tyrod Taylor was their quarterback last year, and while he's not what I would call a franchise-type quarterback, he obviously is better than Nathan Peterman. And, they did trade for A.J. McCarron, and I think A.J. McCarron probably would have been the starter had he not hurt his shoulder. So they went with Nathan, and they traded him to the Raiders, I believe. So they've got 2 young quarterbacks. Peterman, who he of the infamous 5 interception game against the Chargers last year, and Josh Allen, the guy they picked with their first round pick this year. So I would imagine if I'm the Bills, I think you got to go to Josh Allen right away. Don't you?
I mean, I would have gone to him week 1. Now, I mean, personally, and I think we've talked about this, I don't like throwing rookie quarterbacks right out there week 1, but that's assuming you have like a reliable veteran he can study under. He's not learning anything from Nathan Peterman. It's not like he's gonna soak up his wisdom in the first 4 to 6 weeks here and then be ready to play. So it's almost like, I mean, I guess there is some benefit to watching, for a few weeks, but you might as well just go out there and put him out there. I mean, you're not going to have a better team week 7, 8, 9, 10.
No, I agree.
You might as well see what he's got, because he's a guy that's, coming from Wyoming. Like you said, he's a first-round pick, but there's still maybe some questions. Can he really cut it at the NFL level?
Well, he had a good preseason, and of course, preseason is nothing like the NFL regular season. There's no question about that. But he fits the mold of a Buffalo quarterback. I mean, he came from a Western team, cold weather, playing in wind, playing in the elements. He's a big, strong guy. He's got a strong arm. He performed well in the preseason. He may not be completely ready, but I agree with you. I mean, if you took him with your first-round pick and all you've got other than him is Nathan Peterman, I think you got to go with him. I mean, especially after getting beat 47-3 by the
and he played yesterday.
By the Ravens.
I think he had like 14 attempts for 70-something yards.
Yeah, and he had some rushing attempts. But where was the Bills' defense though? I mean, that's another thing. I mean, you can argue all day long they only scored 3 points, but they gave up 47. I mean, that's pretty bad.
Right.
And this was a team that was supposed to have a pretty solid defense. So anyway, tonight, I mean, and then you got the if you look at that division, we thought going into this year that maybe Buffalo could challenge New England, but it doesn't look like they're going to do that.
No.
The Dolphins, I mean, they beat the Titans down in Miami in a game that lasted for 10 hours
right.
with lightning delays and weather delays. But that's the Titans. And then you've got the Jets playing on Monday Night Football with a rookie quarterback. So
we'll see how they look, but it doesn't look promising just from here.
Doesn't look promising. And then the Patriots, one of the things that was not a surprise, everybody talked about, the Houston Texans, Deshaun Watson is back, and he gave the Patriots all they wanted last year in the regular season. Didn't look like it was any different this year, did it?
I mean, you're right, and that's another thing too. I mean, Deshaun Watson is a pretty good quarterback. He could very well be a very good starter in the league. But people need to slow down a little bit on the Deshaun Watson's coming back. Like, here go the Texans. I mean, he played, 7-8 games last year?
Right.
He had some success, but he still hasn't proven himself at the NFL level. So I don't think they have a proven commodity at quarterback still.
No.
He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception yesterday. 34 attempts. I mean, he's going to be okay. He's proven he's not a bust, but I don't know that he can take them above the Patriots, and we saw that yesterday for sure.
Right.
The Patriots did what they pretty much always do. I mean,
and they do it with so many different players. I mean, look at this year. They've got Brandon Cooks is gone, right? Amendola left to go to Miami. Edelman is on suspension.
Right.
So really all they've got is Gronkowski. Dion Lewis went to the Titans in free agency. Malcolm Butler went to the Titans in free agency. So you've got they just keep changing the pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. And obviously they've got Tom Brady and they've got Bill Belichick. So it's obvious to me that those are the two guys that drive the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, 8 different guys had a catch for them yesterday.
Right.
I mean, Gronk had 123 yards, which he carried the load. But 2 other guys caught touchdowns. I mean, they're just spreading the ball around to the random guys like they always seem to do.
Always.
And relying on Gronk for the big plays.
Right.
Which Texans obviously couldn't take him away yesterday.
Right. And I'm going to go ahead and say right now, I mean, barring anything strange, who's going to beat the Patriots in the AFC? I mean, everybody was talking about the Steelers. The Steelers couldn't even beat the Browns yesterday. Okay, I mean they tied the Cleveland Browns. First time there's ever been a tie since the merger in the opening week of the NFL season.
I think it's still early to talk about that.
It is, I know, but I just don't see anybody in the AFC to me that looks like.
Well, let's segue into our next point here. Jaguars.
Yes.
They took the Patriots to the very end last year in the AFC Championship game. They were in action yesterday against your Giants.
Yes.
As we know.
Yes.
And we were talking a little bit yesterday after the game. The Jaguars won 20-15 by 5. And I think our initial thought, or maybe yours out there too, is to think that, wow, the Giants, they're 0-1, lost to the Jaguars.
Right.
The Jaguars are a top AFC team.
They are.
They got to the AFC Championship game last year. They have a very good defense, arguably one of the best in the league. So it's not so much a moral defeat for the Giants. They played a good game. The Jaguars came out on top. What did you see there?
Yeah, I agree with you there. I was thinking about that, talking with our producer, Nathan, and talking with you yesterday, and the more I've reflected on it is that if there ever was a loss that looks good, it was this one. I mean, you had Saquon Barkley, their rookie running back, run for over 100 yards. He had a nice 68-yard touchdown run, beautiful run. First time the Giants have ever had a rookie run for over 100 yards. Eli Manning had a good day. I mean, he didn't throw for a touchdown pass, but he threw for a lot of yards. Odell Beckham is back and better than ever. 11 catches over 100 yards. Yeah. The defense didn't play bad. They had a couple interceptions. So I think the Giants, they've got a new scheme on defense. They're trying to work some of these guys in on offense. Their offensive line is still a work in progress with some of the new pieces. So I think they're going to be just fine. But on the flip side of that, if you look at the Jaguars, what was the thing that held the Jaguars back yesterday? It was their quarterback.
Right.
I mean, he threw a couple interceptions.
They scored a defensive touchdown. That was the difference.
That's right. So from a Giants standpoint, I'm excited because I think the Giants are still on track to have a good season. But when we're talking about the Jaguars, I'm thinking, their defense played extremely well. Their offense, they ran the ball well until Fournette went out with an injury. but their quarterback still could not really push the ball down the field in key situations.
Yeah, but also, what do you think about Manning? Because, I mean, we just mentioned the Jaguars' defense is one of the top in the league, and I believe that. But here's a guy who, they benched last year. Remember all that deal. So they bring him back this year, and he didn't have a great game, 224 with a pick.
Right.
What did you see out of Manning that do you feel positive going forward with him? Or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the pick was not his fault.
Right.
I mean, it was a tipped ball that the guy ran back for a touchdown. I'll tell you again, I think if they can protect Eli Manning, all right, he can take them to the promised land still. I mean, he threw some passes yesterday, some excellent passes yesterday. But you got to protect the guy. I mean, there was also some situations where he wasn't even in the back. He wasn't even to the end of his drop back, and the guys were all over him. I mean, Eric Flowers at right tackle. I mean, the guy couldn't do it at left tackle. Now he's a right tackle. He still couldn't protect him. He had holding penalties. So Manning is a guy that you've got to give protection to. And when you give him protection, he can still do it. I think he's still the guy that can take them where they need to be. Yeah. I think it was a good choice for them not to draft a quarterback this year.
I agree with that, yeah.
I feel comfortable with him at quarterback.
Yeah, I do too. Next week they have the Cowboys on Sunday night, right?
They do.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting, as it always is, division matchup. The Cowboys also 0-1, losing to the Panthers yesterday. I kind of felt going into the year that it wasn't going to be a great season for the Cowboys. No. And they couldn't score more than 8 points yesterday in week 1. And we talked about Deshaun Watson. Dak Prescott's another guy that, how good is he really? I don't know. I mean, like it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I don't see them doing a whole lot this year, to be honest.
I don't either. They don't have any receivers to speak of.
That's true.
Okay?
Yeah, they got rid of Dez Bryant.
Right, and they've got Ezekiel Elliott. So what did the Panthers do? Just what every team is going to do. They're going to stop the run, all right? And they're going to say, look, we're going to stop the run, and we're going to force you to beat us throwing the football. And right now the Cowboys can't do that. And then the game basically ended on a sack where Prescott fumbled the ball. Yeah. I think to go to your point, if you look at the NFL, you got 32 teams in the NFL, right? You've got some really nice quarterbacks in the NFL. Yeah. We've talked about some of them. Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, you Ryan Fitzpatrick, you pick it, okay? But let's look at who are the elite quarterbacks. I mean, who are the guys that you say, this guy can take us to a Super Bowl? Yeah. We got Aaron Rodgers, we got Drew Brees, we got Tom Brady, and we got maybe Eli Manning, because he's done it. Okay,
Roethlisberger's done it.
Roethlisberger's done it. Okay, so you maybe have
Flacco's done it.
6 guys. Okay, 5 or 6, maybe 7. Okay, so what does that tell us? It tells us that you've got to have the franchise quarterback. Yeah. I mean, you've got to have that guy in the saddle that's going to take you to a championship. Yeah. And a lot of these teams don't have it. Okay, you got to have a guy that can put the team on his shoulder when things aren't going well. And a lot of teams, as I said, don't have that. The Cowboys are one of those teams. I'm not sure the Panthers have that guy.
Oh, no,
okay?
I don't think they do either. Yeah.
They've got a great defense, right. But I'm not sure they have it either. Yeah. And what do you think about the Vikings? Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, that was an interesting game yesterday. The 49ers come into Minnesota with Garoppolo, right. who was undefeated. He was 5-0 with the 49ers last year, 2-0 in the starts he had with the Patriots. And the Vikings with Kirk Cousins, they spent a lot of money on Kirk Cousins. Right. So what was your takeaway from that game?
I mean, I think it shows that just how good the Vikings defense is. I mean, they forced Garoppolo into 3 picks. You just mentioned a guy who's never lost an NFL game. But at the same time, it's a little different coming into week 1 where the Vikings had pretty much all offseason to game plan against him. Last year, he gets traded mid-year.
Right.
Makes some starts at the end of the season where the 49ers are already out of it. Just a different vibe in those late season starts than it is coming in week 1 where some things are actually expected of them.
Right.
So, and I think he's a good quarterback, but I just think I give more credit to the Vikings than subtracting credit from the 49ers and Garoppolo.
Do you think the Vikings made the right call getting rid of Case Keenum and signing Kirk Cousins?
I do, yeah.
Right. I mean, you've seen Kirk Cousins play. You've been to some Redskin games.
Yeah, and he's another guy, another fringe guy. I'm not sure he can take you to the Super Bowl, but I don't think that.
You don't think he can?
No, I don't think that Keenum was going to.
Oh no.
I'm saying, I think they ran the right move and going to get another quarterback, and I like Cousins. I think that he's a fine quarterback, but you just don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
that division is going to be another one that, the Bears looked good last night. The Packers, obviously, they ultimately won the game, but it's going to be those three teams. I think all have a shot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Vikings. I think they upgraded their quarterback position. Okay, they've got Dalvin Cook back, their rookie running back from last year, who went out with an ACL injury. That's going to help Kirk Cousins having a good running game. They've got some really good receivers: Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, that little guy from Mankato State. They've got a good running game, and they've got a solid defense, maybe the best defense in the NFC. Yeah. Okay, so I think the Vikings are the favorite in their division. Aaron Rodgers, we don't know how severe this knee injury was. Obviously, he came back, but it's probably going to linger, and we just don't know where that's going. And the Packers did not look very good last night. Okay, so that was a big game as well, and I think it's going to be an interesting race this year. I think. The Falcons. I think the Falcons still have a chance to be good. Matt Ryan's got to play a lot better than he did Thursday. There was some talk that his arm looked dead. He didn't look like he was really throwing the ball very well. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with Matt Ryan. They gave him a big contract. He did take him to a Super Bowl a couple years ago, but we don't know what's going to happen there either.
Yeah. One thing I did like too yesterday was the Redskins. Adrian Peterson, who is a fan favorite of the Press Box podcast, 26 carries for 96 yards. He actually led them in receiving yards too, 70. But it's another guy. The more you feed him, the better he's going to do for you late in the game, and that's a great signing by them. I think that Alex Smith, he's doing what he did for the Chiefs for the Redskins now. Like the Redskins, I don't want to say they're going to win the division right here, but they're not going to be worse than like 7-9, 8-8, 9-7. He's going to play well during the regular season, but they're not a Super Bowl team, obviously. But they're going to be interesting to watch. I'm looking forward to watching Peterson, and I think that as much as we just talked about how good Kirk Cousins was, I think that was a good move for the Redskins too. Right. They obviously didn't believe in Cousins for the franchise tag, so getting in Alex Smith, I think it worked out for both sides. Cousins moved on, and they brought in Alex Smith, who's I think a similar type quarterback.
Well, but we were talking a little bit about this yesterday. Alex Smith, though, is the kind of guy that he can't get the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. He's going to manage the game for you. And I know quarterbacks hate to hear that term, but I'm not sure that he can get the ball deep down the field if need be. And I don't know that they have the receivers for him to get it to. Right. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But if you look at let's talk about the Rams a little bit. I agree with you on the Redskins. I think Adrian Peterson was a great pickup given the injuries they had at running back, and but I don't know if Adrian Peterson can carry the load for 16 games anymore. That's going to be the interesting thing to see as the season wears on. But tonight the Rams open their season. I think the Rams have to be considered one of the favorites.
They do. Yeah,
they've got a pretty good quarterback in Goff. They signed their running back Gurley to a long-term contract. Yeah. They brought Aaron Donald back in under a long-term contract. So I think the Rams are probably one of the favorites in the NFC as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned Goff. Like this is his
third year, right?
Third year. It's his year to break out. Really,
right.
He played a little bit the first year. Started last year. Looked good. Mm-hmm. They were kind of a surprise playoff team last year.
They were.
So I think it's anything less than competing for that division championship is definitely a disappointment for the Rams.
I agree.
I think they win tonight against Oakland. Oakland just losing Khalil Mack, and
right.
Even though the game last night has no actual effect on the Raiders, seeing him perform so well for the Bears last night, it kind of takes the air out of you a little bit. Like, man, we had that guy on our team a week ago.
Right.
We didn't give him away, but they traded him away. So I think that psychologically is going to have a little bit of an effect. That's a game I'm looking forward to watching. I always like watching night games in Oakland. Gruden's going to be back. Chucky. He'll be, feeling himself on the sidelines with his snarls and his yelling and all this stuff. So that'll be fun to watch. Speaking of which, kind of a change of tune there. You have the new Monday night announcing crew.
Yes.
And they're doing the second game, which they've traditionally done the first game. But what's your take on the shakeup in the Monday night booth?
Well, I think it had to be done. Obviously, Gruden left.
Right.
There's no question. And I think the guy Sean McDonough. He's a college announcer.
Well, and we've talked about this with our producer too. The last few years when you come into a Monday night game, like his voice doesn't sound like Monday Night Football.
No, it doesn't.
It's kind of like, hey guys, or
exactly.
It's not, I don't know. So I think you're right. It had to be done.
But I'm not sure that they went the right route. I mean, I think they've got Joe Tessitore, which he's probably a good announcer. I'm not a big fan of his, but he's probably a good announcer. Jason Witten, I think, will be a good personality in the booth. And then they got Booger McFarland, which they're going to have an interesting setup. From my understanding is that he's not going to be in the booth with them. He's going to be on like some platform somewhere in the stadium, giving a perspective from wherever he's at, which will be interesting. But
what do you think of that in general? Like you've called games before, the 3-man booth versus the 2-man booth.
Yeah, I don't think the 3-man booth. I don't think it works very well. There was a lot of tense moments when in Monday Night Football back in years past when they used to have the 3-man booth with Gifford and with Meredith and Cosell, and then you had Dan Deerdorf, Al Michaels, and Gifford. I mean, it's hard because when you have two guys trying to compete for airtime, it's hard. They step on each other's toes occasionally.
Maybe that's the thought of McFarland not actually being in the booth.
That could be, right. That could be. So I think it'll work out. I think it'll probably work itself out and probably be a good situation. I think Jason Witten, it'll take him a little while to feel his way through the process of calling games. It's not an easy to do. We talked about this yesterday. I mean, I don't care how good of a player you were, and I don't care how much knowledge you have of the game. It's difficult to step in a booth and translate that knowledge in a way that the fans can understand it, and in a way that's concise and doesn't step on the toes of your play-by-play man.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the late game. We talked a little bit about the early game with the Jets. You brought up an interesting stat. It was Sam Darnold is the youngest quarterback to start an NFL game.
To ever start an NFL game in week one. Right out of the gate. Right. That's right. So, yeah. He's like 21 years old in some days. I mean, he's pretty young guy, and he hasn't played a lot of football. I mean, a lot of people forget that. I mean, he has not played a lot of football.
Right, because his kind of coming out was the Rose Bowl against Penn State, which was the bowl game.
Right.
And then last year was a full year, but that's a good point as well.
Yeah, he has not played a lot of football, and but obviously the Jets. I mean, you have to believe in the process. I like what the Jets did. I mean, the Jets, they have McCown, right? The old guy, the veteran. Yeah. They brought in Teddy Bridgewater. Okay, they got rid of all the other guys they had.
They got rid of Bridgewater now too.
Well, now they did. I'm talking about at the start, right? They had McCown, Bridgewater, and Darnold, right? They let them compete. I think they knew McCown. I think their feeling was, hey, McCown is our guy if these other two guys don't show us something, okay? And I think Darnold showed him enough with the way he handled the preseason and with the way he handled learning the process that they thought, we don't need Bridgewater anymore. So they traded him, and they'll make McCown the backup, which I think is a very good guy to have as your backup. Yeah. So I think the Jets went about it correctly. The question is, how will it translate when you get into the regular season?
Yeah, and it's interesting too, where you have the Lions have the new coach Patricia from the Patriots, who is their defensive coordinator. So we'll see how you would think a rookie quarterback making his first start and him being a supposed defensive guru will have something dialed up to really confuse Darnold and probably and maybe give the Lions the advantage. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think he's going to be fine personally.
I think he's going to do fine. I mean, let's face it. Let's be honest here. I mean, even Peyton Manning struggled his rookie year.
That, and I think also just in terms of the way the game's officiated and the receiver, it's easier to play quarterback now than it was when a Manning came in.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point.
They're more set up to have success.
They are.
It's not guaranteed, but that's the way the league's going.
They are. You're exactly right. And I think, it's really a rookie quarterback. If you look at, Roethlisberger had a good rookie year, but look at the team he had around him. I mean, you had Jerome Bettis running the football. I think if you have a solid defense and a strong running game, a rookie quarterback can have success, but he's still not going to be the guy that can win the game by himself. Yeah. All right, that takes a while to do. But we'll see how he does tonight, and we'll see kind of how it plays itself out. But I think all in all, it was an interesting first week of the season. And
what about the new, whatever they want to call it, the targeting helmet rules and all that? We're week one already, and we saw some calls that we don't think they should have called, and then we saw some calls that, by the letter of their new law, should have been called. Apparently,
right.
So it's going to be a thing where the refs have to be more consistent across the board. I feel like.
Well, and
I'm not in favor of the rule. Period. I think you should let him play.
Well, the worst thing about that rule is, they're talking about the rule now says that anytime you use the helmet, anytime you lower the helmet or use the crown of the helmet to make initial contact, it's a penalty. That applies to a running back lowering his head as well as a defender. Right. Well, what is a running back supposed to do, for example? I mean, is he supposed to stand straight up?
And get level? Yeah.
Exactly. And what is a defender supposed to do? Yeah. I mean, what if it's an incidental contact? What if it happens, without his knowledge or without his trying to do that? And then this quarterback rule, I mean, that's even gotten more ridiculous. Now they're saying that when you sack the quarterback, you can't put your entire weight on him. Well, what are you supposed to do? I mean, are you supposed to hit the guy and then do a roll, to make sure he lands on you and you don't land on him?
That's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous, okay? And another thing that I don't like, and I mentioned this to you guys yesterday, is if a quarterback leaves the pocket, okay, and runs the football, he should be fair game, okay? Now, if he steps out of bounds, fine, and you hit him, it's a penalty. But once he leaves the pocket, you should be able to hit him any way you want to hit him. If he stays in the pocket, go ahead, protect him, okay? But that's ridiculous. It's not fair to the defenders.
Yeah, no, they're putting the defenders in a really tough spot because we talked about this yesterday some too when we were watching the games where I think I had a comment of, well, hopefully the defenders just won't pay attention. They'll just play football as usual and hit. But Nathan, our producer, was saying, yeah, I mean, that's nice, but he pointed to a play where somebody, I think it was Antonio Brown, caught a ball over the middle and he didn't have it totally secured, and the safety was lined up for just a big shot on him and dislodged the ball, but he went low because of the rule.
Right.
Or, I mean, you can have not really listened to the rule, but if you get penalized 15 yards, it hurts the team. So the defenders kind of have to. They just put him in a really tough spot. It's not fair to them.
Well, we talked a little bit about this maybe before, but here's the problem as I see it, okay? If you ask any NFL receiver or running back, where would you rather be hit? Would you rather be hit low or would you rather be hit high? 99.9%, if not 100%, would say, hit me high.
Right.
Because if you hit me low and you tear my knee up, my career is over, okay? But if you hit me high, I might have a concussion or I might get my bell rung, but I can still play.
Right.
Now, I know that sounds like a terrible thing to say, and people say, oh, how could you say something like that? But the NFL is reacting to social pressure, okay? They're not the players, I don't think the players are saying, oh, you got to protect us, okay? The players know what they're getting into, all right? They know what the game is like. And I wouldn't want somebody hitting me in the knee and tearing my knee up.
Right.
And that's what's going to happen, okay? That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what you do. I mean, I don't know how you're going to solve this issue. You're going to have concussions. There's just no way around it. Whether it's friendly fire, whether it's just the accident of the game, I don't know. I mean, it's just a pet peeve of mine, I guess. But
I've said before, first thing I do as commissioner is reset the defensive rules to 1973.
That's what I would do. Yeah, go back to that. But see, they don't want that because the fans want scoring, right? Yeah. And that's the way they've set it up now. True. They want high scoring games, and fans don't like low scoring games. That's just the nature of the beast. But there were some other interesting games yesterday, like we had Seattle and Denver. I mean, Denver came out on top in that one. Another interesting one was the Chiefs and the Chargers.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about that yesterday. The Chargers had not beaten the Chiefs in, I think, 3-4 years maybe. Right. And we thought yesterday was their best chance. The Chiefs had a new quarterback, not a rookie, but basically a rookie in Mahomes. And the Chargers still couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I mean, Mahomes, he threw 4 touchdowns yesterday.
Yeah.
Two to Hill. So that's, I think he gives them more upside than Alex Smith.
He does.
I think, of course, that's one game he started, but the Chiefs, I think they have more upside, but I don't know that it's going to manifest itself out throughout the season.
Right.
It's a very interesting division because we'll see how Oakland does tonight, but Denver won yesterday.
Right.
I guess going into the season, you kind of have to give the edge to Kansas City, but and the Chargers obviously aren't out either. That's going to be an interesting division to play out.
And if you're Phillip Rivers, you got to be a little bit sick. I mean, he had receivers drop passes yesterday, left and right. I mean, in fact, a couple guys dropped touchdown passes.
Right.
So, I mean, he's putting the ball where he needs to put it. He's just not getting a lot of help.
Yeah.
But would you say that division, the AFC West, is probably the most wide open?
Let me think here. I'd say it is. Yeah, because you got Patriots, you got probably Jacksonville's got the leg up.
Jacksonville,
North.
Pittsburgh and Baltimore, maybe.
Baltimore. Well, just look at yesterday. Baltimore looked better than Pittsburgh,
right? But as far as saying any of those 4 teams could win the division,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting division when it comes down to who's going to win it. And I think the other divisions are pretty well. I mean, I don't think there's another division where you can say all 4 teams have a legitimate shot at winning the division.
Maybe the NFC East. I don't know.
I'm not. Well, maybe. I mean, do you think? Yeah, maybe. I mean, it's possible. I mean, I don't know that the Cowboys do.
I don't like the Cowboys in that division.
Yeah, I don't think the Cowboys do. I think they're the one team that I would not give a high probability of having a chance to win the division.
Right. How about, let's see, we had Andrew Luck come back yesterday for the first time in over a year.
Yep.
They couldn't beat the Bengals, but I think if you're an Andrew Luck fan or a Colts fan, you at least look promising from what you saw. He didn't look, you didn't see any, ill effects from any of the injuries or any too much rust or anything like that.
No, you got to be excited about that the guy's back, and at least it gives you a legitimate shot. I don't know that they have anybody that could run the ball effectively.
Yeah, I just don't think they're a great team right now.
No, they're not a very good team right now. So that was interesting. I mean, but I think all in all, it was a good week.
Yeah,
I think it was a good week.
Yeah. And lastly, I guess we touched on a little bit of the Dolphins-Titans in the longest game in NFL history, right?
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, that was amazing. I mean, I couldn't believe it when we were listening to it.
Right.
Was that? I mean, I think they kicked off at 1, and the game ended like a 4:00 game. It ended like 7:30 because they had so many delays because of lightning and bad weather. And I mean, that had to be tough on the players because you have to almost come out. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know how you would do that. In other words, after you've been hitting for 2 quarters and then you have to take a long layoff, even if you come out and warm up, it's still got to be tough.
I can't even stand baseball delays.
Exactly.
And I don't even play. So,
exactly.
I mean, that's actually to be playing in an NFL game and have those delays. It's
got to be
how
tough.
they did it. Yeah,
I don't see how they did it.
That's kind of crazy. Well, let's finish up with this then. We're recording this on a Monday. If you're listening to this now, it will be Thursday.
Correct.
And tonight we've got Thursday night tonight we've got the Ravens and Bengals for Thursday Night Football. It's a quick preview of that game. Ravens coming off a big win, as we talked about. I would give them the edge over Cincinnati just because it seems like historically it's obviously the NFC North rivalry, or AFC North rivalry. Yeah, I like the Ravens. I think they ride the momentum from the first week and kind of get over the hump against the Bengals. So I don't think they're as good as they looked against the Colts.
No, I agree with that. The Bengals are kind of an anomaly. I mean, they've got a pretty decent quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean, he's not great, but he's not bad.
Right.
They've got some good receivers. I mean, they've got some good running backs. They've got a pretty solid defense, but they can't seem to get over the hump. You know what I mean? They just can't seem to put it all together. Right. They had a nice run there from about 5 years when they made the playoffs every year and couldn't win a playoff game. And then, of course, the last couple of years they haven't even made the playoffs. And then you look at the Ravens. I think the best thing the Ravens did was draft Lamar Jackson, only because it seemed to have light a fire under Joe Flacco.
Yeah, Joe Flacco, he's kind of got that. He gives off the vibe that when it's time to try hard, he'll try hard.
Exactly.
Like that's why he's been so good in the playoffs, because he knows it's do or die, right?
Exactly.
But during the regular season, you kind of got that tendency to just kind of coast through, and But yeah, that's a good, excellent point.
Yeah, I think it lit a fire under Joe Flacco because he played lights out yesterday, and if he plays like that as the season goes on, with the weapons they have, I think they can be legitimate challengers in that division to win it, because Pittsburgh does not impress me. I mean, Roethlisberger threw 3 interceptions yesterday or Sunday. I mean, how do you do that against the Cleveland Browns?
I don't know.
I mean, don't get me wrong. The Browns are not a bad team. We talked about this last year. They've got talent, But if you're supposed to be Ben Roethlisberger, and you're supposed to be so good, you can't throw 3 interceptions, in a game like that. Yeah. So I think that division, I think the Ravens have a legitimate shot at it, and I think you're right. I think they beat the Bengals on Thursday night and go 2-0 in that division.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, like we said at the start, great week 1. We'll look forward to week 2, and we'll be back, as we said, more often here on the Press Box Podcast. I'm looking forward to adding more guests. We'll be talking football all season long, and we have the MLB playoffs coming up soon, and
we'll be talking college football too.
That's right, college football. Right, look for that soon as well. And so I think I mentioned last night, NBA training camps tip off here in about 27 minutes.
That's right.
After the 2-month off season, so we've got a lot to talk about coming into the fall. Always an exciting time in the sports year. So stay with us and look for that. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. You can find it on iTunes wherever you get your podcast.
Yeah, go ahead. After you finish, I just want to mention one thing.
Yeah, and as always, our Twitter account at PressBoxPod on Twitter. Follow us on there. We'll be keeping up with the latest episodes. Trying to do some interactive things and more like that as we get going here. So.
Yeah, and also remember our sponsor, Bonus Room Art, www.bonusroomart.com. But I also want to mention our producer has got another new project that I want everybody listening to go check out. And it's a new YouTube channel, Mascots and Monikers. Remember, Mascots and Monikers. And what it is, it's a sports documentary about how your favorite sports teams got their names and their mascots. He's got one already up there, the story of the Fighting Irish, how the Notre Dame Fighting Irish got their name and mascot. And also the next one will be the Tennessee Volunteers. So go to YouTube, search Mascots and Monikers. Just about everybody today has got a Google account. I mean, they're either Gmail or some sort of Google account. So if you have one, you can subscribe to that channel and get notices every time a new one pops up. But check it out if you like it. Tell everybody about it. Get a lot of people to look at it. I mean, it's a great series, and I think it's going to do great.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. I mean, if you're a fan of any NFL team out there, say you're a Bears fan, well, why are they the Bears?
Right.
It's interesting for any sport, any team. And, we might even bring our producer on to talk a little bit about that.
I think we should.
In the next podcast. That's something to look forward to as well.
I think we should. So lots of great things. We're really excited. I mean, it's the best time of the year sports-wise. We've got to talk playoff baseball coming up. I mean, that's getting close to the wire here. So we've got lots to talk about, and we'll hopefully get at it more often than we have in the past.
All right, sounds good. So for Ralph Miranda, this is Joseph signing off on this episode of the Press Box Podcast. Stay tuned for the next one coming soon.